All right, folks, I don't think I'll have any recordings today other than the news, because I'm not going to introduce any new material, but there are a lot of good news stories. So this one I heard on NPR all over the place. The Trump administration refused their option to reserve Pfizer vaccine for Americans. So we are only going to get 100 million doses, enough for 50 million people, and we're not going to get any more until like the spring of next year because it's all gone to other nations. And they said they approached the Trump administration several times and tried to get them to agree to buy it, and they refused. So we are apparently going to run out of vaccine and not have it to vaccinate Americans very soon. Yeah, thanks for asking. The migraine's better. I'm still a little weak from it, but it's going away. Anyway, so that is, in retrospect, not surprising. The Trump administration has ruined everything about this pandemic, and they also didn't bother to purchase the vaccine we need. They just are completely incompetent at everything. This one's interesting. Dragos raised a bunch of money from a lot of people, including the Saudis, for securing industrial control systems. And I see they're doing I thought it's funny because this is run by a guy who I've had a little bit to do with indirectly. I've used some of the tools he made. Robert Lee. Anyway, he made the same decision I made, which I thought is kind of funny. He's doing business in Saudi Arabia because he says, yeah, their government does seem to be problematic and seems to be doing terrible things, but I don't feel like I'm willing to tell the people that they have to suffer because their leader is crazy, which certainly, especially as a modern American, I feel no moral high ground on telling people, oh, your leader is insane, therefore you don't get education or help or something. And of course they need it. Same thing that motivated me is motivating him. The Russians are killing people or trying to kill them by sabotaging their industrial systems they're using to get the oil. And so if you want to secure that stuff, seems like a good idea to secure it. Anyway, this I thought was interesting. Someone put it on Twitter. It's hardly new news, but this woman, Levi Montalcini, worked in the anatomy department in, I think, Italy. And she was barred in the run-up to the World War II for being a Jew. So she ended up hiding out under a false name with people that were protecting Jews. And she just took a corner of their little hideout and turned it into a research lab and studied the growth of nerve fibers in chicken embryos. And she discovered nerve growth factor with that kind of research and eventually got the Nobel Prize for doing that. So it is really pretty amazing. And by the way, in a less dramatic but similar thing, I forgot to put it here. Yeah, Axiom X. You know, our college just scored #1 in the regional pen testing competition, beating Stanford, which is ridiculously farther than where we should go. And now Axiom X won the ponies. And this is the best privilege exclamation bug. Checkmate. Axiom X is an ex-student in these classes. He took my classes a couple of years ago. And I'm certainly not going to say I taught him everything he knows by any means. I mean, he was a real expert on iOS anyway, but he hadn't thought of doing attacks. So he took some of these attack classes, and then he went and started researching the security of iOS and found this new jailbreak. And this is, you know, absolutely, I think one of the top possible prizes in the world of security is the ponies. Greatly respected. That means he's absolutely one of the top security researchers in the world. Anyway, as you know, I've been picking up satellite signals with antennas and a software-defined radio, following what Caitlin did, and we're developing a series of projects. We're probably going to start teaching it at DEF CON and such. Someplace I put a link to these space projects. There we are. There's a bunch of them accumulating up here. And Caitlin is moving ahead, and she has found out that you can rent real real dishes, ground stations, to talk to satellites for $10 an hour from Amazon. You can rent a dish and talk to a satellite. So she's going to start looking into that, see if you can get like professional equipment, like far beyond the reach of amateurs building it out of wires and wood the way I'm doing. So that might give us some more exciting projects. They won't be completely free, but they might be achievable. JP Morgan has apparently made their own blockchain and used it for the first time to move some data around or some money around. So they're saying it would have taken 2 days in the old system and this was instantaneous. So we'll see if it is a slight move towards legitimacy for blockchains, which are pretty struggling. I mean, the Bitcoin has gone way up in price, but most serious professionals just have no respect for blockchain, like our David Gerard said, and like I've said, it seems to be a technology with no actual application. Anyway, many banks invested in it, and we'll see what comes of it all. But JP Morgan has used it apparently a little bit. They made something called Jpm Coin. So this hit the news. There was a woman in, I think, Florida. Yeah, Rebecca Jones. She worked inside the government, and she was in charge of handling the data, keeping track of the number of COVID infections. And the governor of Florida is widely criticized for being very Trumpy, very hostile to all defense measures that would protect people from the virus, and very anxious to falsify and minimize the figures. So she was ordered to do unethical things, which she said to lie about the figures and make it look like there was less coronavirus than there was. So they fired her. So she made an independent website with independent data, posting what she said was the real data on the coronavirus in Florida, running from a server in her room. So they sent the authorities to raid her house, impound her phone, impound her server, scare her kids, and come charging in and make a real mess, to where at least one person involved resigned over this, saying this is terrible. Anyway, what they're really trying to do is find out who is leaking secrets to her. And then it turns out that everybody in the government division responsible for this in Florida uses the same name and password that everybody knows to send messages on their private server. So it's never changed either. And it's even on a public website where you can look it up. So it is pretty outrageous, and we'll see how this all goes. But anyway, I think it's just a small bit of the extreme chaos rocking the nation, as there's just ridiculous fights over the election and the virus, as America reveals itself to be just basically the stupidest nation on earth, where half of us pretend there's no virus, the other half want to overthrow democracy. We just seem to have lost our mind over here, where we're not on the same team at all, and our leaders seem to be totally ineffectual. It is, outsiders from the country have said it's like watching the collapse of the Roman Empire. You guys used to be so great, and you're just collapsing like crazy in short term in every way. So Biden has a team that's going to disinfect the White House thoroughly after Trump leaves, which is certainly the right thing to do. Trump is having dozens of holiday parties with no masks, super spreader events in the White House. After already infecting practically everybody that works in the White House, they're determined to infect more people. And Cruz is now testing driverless cars in San Francisco. So I haven't seen any yet, but we may have these soon. Apparently these are really coming. So I'll be interested to see how that works. And Kali Linux, the main distribution used for pen testing, is going to increase their training products and talk about how they're going to continue to become the leader. And it certainly is true that the OSCE is the #1 certificate to get. And if you want to get it at City College, we've got a program that's leading a lot of students to it. The same one that's winning that contest. The pen testing classes, 123, 124, and then 140. Those are the classes that get you involved in cyber competitions, and they also prepare you for the OSCP largely. And they're not specifically tied to the OSCP, but certainly that's what you should do if you want an OSCP, is complete those courses first. And then you have to do quite a bit of study on your own, because it's really pretty tough, but it's very valuable. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop recording this stuff. And the only thing I've got is